Joining us now, Mark Thiessen, former chief speechwriter for President George W. Bush, an American Enterprise Institute fellow, and a Fox News contributor. He also happened to write a book with Governor Walker called Unintimidated, a governor's story and a nation's challenge. Also here, Robert Zimmerman, a Democratic strategist who worked on the Clinton campaigns. He's also a Democratic National Committee member and co-founder of Zimmerman Edelson Public Relations. Good to see you both, guys.
Good to be with you.
So a lot of focus on Governor Walker, Mark Thiessen, a lot of focus on him and the questions that linger, as the Washington Post put it, over his college exit and his stance on evolution.
Yeah, I know. I think Howard Dean would have liked him more if when he was in Iowa, if Walker had screamed during his speech. That would have made it a little bit better for Howard. I mean, look, why is the left so upset about why is Howard Dean going after Scott Walker? Why is the Washington Post putting a front-page story on the mystery of why he didn't finish his college degree? It's because they're afraid of Scott Walker. And they have a reason to be afraid of Scott Walker, because this is a guy who wins without compromising. Scott Walker won 3 elections in 4 years in a state that has not, blue state that has not gone Republican for president since Ronald Reagan. Before that, he won 3 elections in Milwaukee County, which is the bluest of blue districts in Wisconsin. And he did it while governing as an unapologetic conservative. So what he's shown is that you can win the center without moving to the center. And that is what the greatest fear of the Democrats is that we put somebody up who can actually win the center without moving to the center and compromise.
You know, Mark, maybe I missed something, but I don't recall your sense of indignation and outrage when Glenn Beck and Donald Trump and the others were attacking President Obama and spreading lies and misinformation about his college record, in his college grades. It's absolutely wrong to see Governor Walker attacked or maligned for not finishing college. That's not the issue in terms of his presidential campaign. But the bigger issue is the test of presidential character and leadership. I'm more concerned about Scott Walker not being able to answer a question about vaccines, whether it should be nationwide, or answering a question about evolution.
About vaccines.
He was at a trade seminar, and he was asked about his views on evolution. He was sitting there at a trade seminar. Now, granted, he could field the question. I mean, Mark, you tell me whether he should have fielded that question, even though it was out of left field.
He should not have fielded that question. First of all, that's just one of the. That question is so insulting to begin with.
It's called science.
Let him finish. Go ahead, Mark.
Let him. It's an insulting question. Do you ever hear a Democrat ask the question, do you believe in biblical creation? Do you believe that we're created by God? No, because no, come on. When's any Democratic president
in every campaign?
What they're basically asking Scott Walker is, are you one of those crazy Christians that clings to God and guns? That's what they want to know. And the proper answer to that is next question. He doesn't have to answer that question. It's a rude question, and it's absurd.
But, Mark, what's his excuse for not answering questions about climate change and whether human beings contribute to it, or dodging questions about vaccination?
He's going to have to answer all that, but the question is whether he had to answer it to some guy in the UK who, you know, it was Krauthammer who called it impudent and condescending.
Megan, when he's running for president, he's got to be prepared to answer questions every day and all the time.
He has to do it when I ask him, but he doesn't have to do it with some jerk in the UK does it.
Okay, that works for me, Megan.
All right, let's shift gears, because President Obama apparently felt the need to talk to BuzzFeed about, I guess, the Obamacare deadline, the enrollment deadline that's coming up, and chose an interesting way of doing it. Let's watch a little. So now, Mark, he is getting hit by the Washington Post, which called this a humiliation, or the New York Times called it a humiliation, and the Washington Post also took a hit at him over this, saying he's being, I don't know what the word was, goofy? Weirdo, a weirdo. It's Obama being a weirdo, they wrote. And then earlier on Special Report, George Will called it, it said it diminishes the office of the presidency, but they were most concerned about the fact that this came out, I guess, on the day that the public was informed Kayla Mueller, an American, had been killed by ISIS. Your thoughts on it?
You know, it's just not that funny. I mean, that's the problem. I mean, the best presidential humor throughout history has been self-deprecating humor. You know, George W. Bush used to make jokes about his reading and his command of the English language. Ronald Reagan used to make jokes about his age. I think he said once that if I've given strict orders that in a crisis I have to be awakened even if it's in the middle of a cabinet meeting. I mean, that's making fun of yourself. That's funny. Obama seems to just trying to be showing us how hip he is. You know, he's got these, if you use the phrase YOLO. I mean, you know, what president says YOLO? It's just not funny.
I'm so unhip. I had to Google that. I was like, what does that mean, YOLO?
Too.
Mark,
and then it means you only live once. Go ahead,
Mark. I think your biggest worry is the fact that commercial works. In 3 hours, they had over 5.4 million viewers. And the reality is, this is why Democrats have been able to appeal and reach millennials. To Republicans, millennials are people 65 years in age and above. Their commercial just became talkies. So I think in terms of being able to dialogue and reach younger demographic, the president's been able to do it effectively. You're seeing it also being critical for health care.
What are the criticisms we heard earlier that you know, the optics, this is the criticism earlier, that the optics of this coming out, knowing that this was the day that the public was informed Kayla Mueller, an American, had been killed by ISIS. Today we had Ban Ki-moon of the UN testifying that Yemen is collapsing, and that happens to be the home to our most dangerous adversary. You know, is there an optical problem there?
Look, when BuzzFeed chose to release it, I can't speak to that issue. We don't know if it was coordinated with the White House or not.
They shot it on that day.
Well, the reality is, I think it's really very unfair to in any way imply the president was not sensitive to or responsive to those international issues. I mean, I think that's inappropriate. The real issue here is the fact that this is a commercial that this was a commercial that was designed to reach millennials, did it effectively, and that's where the Republicans are objecting.
What about it, Mark? I mean, a lot of people saw this and laughed and said, you know, good for him. It makes him seem more relatable and likable.
It's very inappropriate to suggest that he would do something like this because he never went out and played golf after announcing an American had beheaded. I mean, come on. This guy has not exactly got he has a political tenure when it comes to this stuff. I mean, look, it's just the big problem with this, Megyn. It's not that it's offensive. It's just not funny.
Mark, I think you're traumatized by Richard Nixon saying, "Sock it to me." I'm laughing. Maybe you saw it when you were a kid. Every president goes through these periods of reaching out to different demographics.
Yes, Mark has told me many times of his trauma over that.
Yes,
so
it is, absolutely.
Kind of cruel of you to bring it up, Robert. Good to see you both.